Well, for months, Donald Trump has rallied against the release of the Epstein files and attacked members of his own party who called for full transparency. Well, now in a stunning reversal, he says Republicans in the House should vote in favor of full disclosure. In a social media post, the president continued to claim the Epstein files are what he calls a Democrat hoax, but says it's time for Republicans to move on from this issue. The House is expected to hold a vote on Tuesday to compel the Department of Justice to release its files. The Republican who has been pushing for that vote says he expects that more than 100 of his Republican colleagues to vote in favor of it. Well, despite changing his tune on the Epstein files, Trump continues to criticize Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. For months, she has been one of the few Republicans willing to defy Trump when it came to the Epstein files. Trump now says he will not endorse her next year when she runs for re-election. And with the House vote looming, several women who survived Epstein's abuse have joined forces for a public service announcement, making a powerful plea to Congress to finally release the files.
I was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16.
17. 14 years old. This is me.
This was me.
This is me.
When I met Jeffrey Epstein.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows. It's time to shine a light into the darkness.
For a better understanding of why President Trump so abruptly changed his course, I want to go to the White House and CNN's Alayna Treene. Good to have you with us, Alayna. So the president has reversed course, now urging the House Republicans to vote to release the Epstein files. Why the change?
I think the biggest reason, Lynda, is because the White House knows very well that a number of House Republicans were essentially going to defect on this. If you actually listen to what we heard from Thomas Massie, a Republican who is one of the two people who had actually pushed for this vote, him alongside his colleague Ro Khanna, who brought this bill forward, he said that he believes at least 100 Republicans in the House are going to vote for this. And so essentially the calculus that the White House is making is that they were likely going to lose this battle anyway. And so at this point, why not own it? And I will tell you, it is, you talked about it being a stark reversal. I mean, if you just look at where we were a couple days ago, when they were looking at what they called the discharge position, which would essentially force this vote that's going to happen tomorrow, there were 4 Republicans who got behind it. And the White House had actually called one of them, Lauren Boebert, to the White House, and actually in the Situation Room they met with her to try and convince her not to do that. And so it really is a big turn from where the president has been. But part of this as well is his argument is that the Justice Department has already released a lot of files and he wants to move on from this story. It's a distraction, but still it begs the question of why haven't they just released everything in their in the Justice Department, every material that they have on this, to get rid of it anyway, because you don't need Congress to have the Trump administration actually release all of these documents, Lynda.
Yeah, Alayna Treene, we will speak to you again on this story, but we are going to stay on it right now. Thanks to you. I want to do a deep dive into the politics behind all of this. Joining me now are a pair of CNN political commentators. Cupp is the host of Off the Cupp podcast and a columnist for the New York Daily News. And Maria Cardona is a Democratic strategist. Good to have you both with us.
Thank you, Lynda. Great to be here.
Hi.
So, Maria, I'll start with you because Trump previously called the Epstein case a hoax. But after these petitions that forced a House vote, he's finally supporting this vote. Did he really have a choice here, or is this really about political optics?
It is an empty gesture full of desperation on behalf of Donald Trump. And he didn't just call it a hoax, Lynda. He called it a Democrat hoax, which I think goes to how afraid he is and fearful he is that he has completely lost control of his House caucus, which I think is true, and one of the things that you're seeing with over 100 Republicans possibly defecting and voting for this. But I think politically it also shows how damning this whole issue has been, and how ironically this has been an issue of his own making and of his party's own making. They were the ones who ran on this in the 2024 elections, promising the MAGA base that they were going to be completely transparent and release everything. Pam Bondi went on television and literally said, "The files are on my desk and I am about to release them." So why haven't they? Did they find stuff in there that is going to be hurtful to Trump? Is Trump afraid of everything that is in there and now just trying to pretend that he's not? it's not going to look good for him moving forward unless he takes the step, Lynda, of saying to the Department of Justice, not just to his members, saying you can vote for this, but no, he's got to say to his Department of Justice, release everything. If he really has nothing to hide, that is what he will do. If he doesn't, then everyone is going to assume that he is trying to hide something and that the party is trying to cover something up, and politically that will continue to be damning for him.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, Cupp, because if these files are heavily redacted, the question will be, what's the point here? What's your assessment of all of this and the calculation behind Trump's reversal?
Yeah, I think, everyone here is correct that Trump is out of options. Trump tried everything to avoid this moment. Trump tried denying he was close with Jeffrey Epstein. We know that's not true. He's called it a hoax and a scam. He's tried to pressure House Republicans to back off of this. He's tried to work MAGA influencers off of this story, and nothing has worked. So rather than be the lone guy out there fighting everyone, fighting the right, fighting the left, fighting the center, he's really out of options. And so he's now at this moment trying to look like it's his idea, right? Make it look like I'm the one that wants it released because I have nothing to hide. The problem is the refusal over the past year to do anything has made him look very, very guilty. Mm-hmm. And, as you noted, Lynda, if they released just a redacted stack of papers, that's going to satisfy no one and prolong this story much longer and much closer to the midterms, which would be disastrous.
Mm-hmm. And in the midst of all this, we can't forget about the survivors, the Epstein survivors, who were just teenagers, where many of them were trafficked. I just want to play some sound from two survivors, Danielle Banksky and Liz Steiny.
I think the emails really speak for themselves. You read it and you have a very visceral reaction to them. And I think survivors have been very clear and consistent about our messaging that anyone who performs harm or anybody that has done any wrongdoing or has harmed people should face accountability.
We need the government to release everything that's in these files, of course with the appropriate redactions to protect the privacy of the survivors, but we really need this information to be out there so these crimes can be investigated. I think it's really upsetting to us that this is so politicized when it's not a political issue. This was a crime, and it's a crime of sex trafficking, and we really just want to see justice for the crime that happened to us.
I mean, it shouldn't be political, right? But it potentially could involve high-profile people, politicians, political donors even. We have heard from some of the Epstein survivors that they're preparing their own list of alleged associates should these files largely be redacted. Could that create a bigger headache? First to you, Maria.
I mean, I think the more that these survivors speak out, Lynda, the more the pressure is going to be on Republicans and Trump to actually release everything. Democrats have been on record saying, release it all. I don't think they care. I certainly don't care as a Democrat what Democratic name is on there. I think everyone needs to see who did what and when, who knew what and when. And I think that the damaging pieces that are coming out right now about Donald Trump makes it look possibly worse than it might even be. We know that he hasn't been accused of anything, but when you have Epstein saying, I could destroy Donald Trump, and when you have him saying he spent hours with one of the victims, that really makes people wonder, well, what else is in there that makes him look guilty? And so if in fact, again, for Donald Trump, and not that he would ever take my advice, but as a crisis communications expert, you don't want the drip, drip, drip on this, because that is what is being so harmful to him and Republicans politically. And those Republicans who have to run next year, Lynda, in the 2026 midterm elections, they know that, which is why now they have to choose, am I going to continue to bend over backward and genuflect at the altar of Donald Trump, or am I going to finally serve my constituents and, importantly, the survivors, which is what we should all be about. So we'll see.
And the other thing, to Cupp, that is not only potentially damaging, it doesn't help the conservative cause when you have, podcasters like Kinkade come out and say that, well, maybe Epstein wasn't a pedophile because he was targeting teenagers and trafficking teenagers rather than 5-year-olds. I mean, it sounds like she's minimizing abuse. What's your response?
The shame in all of this, of course, is that this has been political from the beginning. Years ago, when Julie K. Brown first, gave us this incredible investigation, investigating a story that a lot of other news outlets wouldn't. Both parties have seized on this for political purposes. The right because they think Democrats are in it, Democrats because they think Trump is in it. And we've lost sight of these victims, so much so that MAGA influencers with giant platforms go on television making money off of denouncing and diminishing and dismissing pedophilia. That's how gross and bad and politically corrosive this issue has become. And it's so unfortunate for the victims who just want their stories told. They just want to know what happened. They just want someone to believe them and take them seriously. And instead, what everyone is talking about is whether Trump is in it or Bill Clinton is in it, what kind of political fallout there might be from this. People like Megyn Kelly are profiting off of the dismissing Jeffrey Epstein's disgusting crimes. It is grotesque, and it is a really sad commentary on the state of American politics today, where we can't even come together and treat this like a crime with victims who were children at the time. And now we're talking about a president who might even potentially pardon a person who was convicted of a crime in this, Ghislaine Maxwell. It's really gross. It's really sad. It's really awful for the victims.
I want to turn to the immigration raids because both the Epstein files and the ICE raids touch on public trust in government institutions. We've just seen this massive raid in Charlotte, North Carolina over the weekend. Over 80 people detained, reportedly the largest sweep in the history of that state. For you, Maria, how does this play out, especially in Democratic-led cities and states?
It's playing out across the board horribly, Lynda. And as an immigrant, this is incredibly personal to me. And I have heard from these families. I have heard from immigrants who have been detained. Many of them, by the way, U.S. citizens. And even those that aren't have no criminal record whatsoever. And so what you're seeing across the board are these ICE thugs who are masked and who are unidentified, who go into these cities, into these communities, open up vans, grab people from their cars, break the windows, they gas and they tear gas toddlers, they smash young mothers' heads on the pavement. And all of these images, Lynda, are having a corrosive political effect on Republicans and on Trump, who, by the way, won the 2024 election in large part on his stance on immigration. Well, the American people are now turning on him. Latinos are turning on him. And we're going to see it in the 2026 midterm elections if, again, Republicans who are running in those midterm elections don't stand up and say, you know what, this is not what America stands for. These are not the values that the vast majority of the American people support. This is not what the majority of the American people voted for. And so I think that they have an opportunity, Democrats have an opportunity to come together and say, immigration reform is needed. Let's do this in a balanced, humane way, which is what the majority of the American voters agree with. This is not it.
And it's interesting, you note that Trump won the Latino male vote in the last election. So should he lose that, or his colleagues at the midterms, that will be an issue.
Absolutely.
To you, Cupp, for Republicans, this might reinforce that tough on immigration stance. But overall, politically, is it working for the Republican Party?
Listen, Trump made this promise. He made a promise to lower crime and attack illegal immigration. So I think to a lot of MAGA, this looks like he's keeping his promise. To a lot of the rest of America, though, even if they were in for the crackdown. This isn't the way they wanted it prosecuted and executed. And so there is some fear about how that is looking inside Republican circles. But I think the important thing to note here is that this is also being used as a giant distraction from an economy that is not working, an economy that a lot of voters believe is worse since Donald Trump took office, worse because of a dumb trade war and tariffs, worse because of Doge cuts, worse because unemployment is down. And Trump is about to make the same mistake that cost Democrats the 2024 election. Democrats lost because they told voters that on the three issues that mattered most to them, economy, crime, and immigration, those things weren't problems. They said the economy's great, immigration isn't a crisis, crime is down. They didn't believe people when they were talking about their pain. People are in pain right now economically, and Trump is saying the numbers are great, inflation is gone. Don't worry about the jobless numbers. We won't even tell you what they are, but they're going to be fine. That is a huge political malpractice, and he's at risk of losing his base over the issue they care about the most, an issue they know is not better than it was a year ago. They can feel it. They can see it. They're not stupid. And Trump is looking them in the eye and saying, you're stupid. The economy's great. It's the best ever. Big, big, big sort of warning caution signs ahead if he keeps doing that.
Yeah, we certainly await that key economic data. SC Cupp, Maria Cardona, appreciate both of you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lynda.